Every home begins as a whisper, an idea, a sketch, a question of what if. Back in 2017, I was approached by a client to design and build a home. At first, the idea was to renovate and extend their existing home, which was around 6,000 square feet. And the idea was to give them more space to grow as a family and to give them all the bells and whistles they needed in their home and to keep it under 20,000 square feet. After working on the plans for weeks, we realized that trying to salvage the existing home and triple it in size just wasn't going to work. This was mainly due to the quality of building we were aiming for, as the existing home was built of sticks. And for anyone that knows me should know this: I don't associate premium home building with stick framing. So we made the decision to do away with the existing home and start from scratch. We spent another 3 to 4 weeks outlining just what was needed in the home. For example, how many people would be living there? How many guests would come to dinner? And what sort of features and functions did they need? And what we found is that week after week, the project grew to the extent that it ended up at over 50,000 square feet. Now, there's pretty amazing rooms in this home, such as a karaoke room, a golf simulator, and an indoor grotto pool. Now, normally, I think most people would agree that 50,000 square foot is a bit excessive. But in this instance, I think it was absolutely perfect and that the owners are going to use every square inch. Now, creating a concept is one thing, but getting the architectural plans, the engineering, and the permitting, that's a whole different story. The amount of hours that went into the architectural, the engineering, and the design work for this project was incredible. I was working around the clock on this project as the designer and builder, trying to figure out what construction methods I wanted to use, how we could fit it into the client's budget, and also so I could get the engineering completed so we could submit the plans. I wanted to use concrete for this home, for the construction, and being in Canada, I wanted to use a concrete product that would stand the test of time and also provide great insulation. So I decided to use ICF, insulated concrete forms. I've used them before on other projects, and I really felt like this was the way to go on this project. Okay guys, so now I'm going to walk you through the process, the actual process of constructing this mega project, and I really want to share with you the stages and the techniques that I implemented throughout building this. We had to build, we had a timeline we were trying to hit of 2.5 years. I think it ended up taking 3.5 years, but anyone who's built a 50,000 square foot fully custom concrete home knows that that's no easy feat. So you'll see a lot of what I like to call organized chaos. I mean, I feel totally at peace and in control when things are in chaos. So I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but the photos that I'm going to show you are in order of when they were taken throughout the project, but you may see a lot of back and forth between different things as they're getting done. So if that throws you off, I apologize, but that's the best I can show you is how I actually built it. So let's kick it off here. So we started off with this home. It was, I think it was 6,000 square feet. So you can see here it had an outdoor pool. The pool had a beautiful rock waterfall in front of it. Had a beautiful, lovely deck out there and bathrooms. I mean, it was quite a nice house. The brickwork on the house had a pretty much a redone roof on it as well, which was a shame. And the brickwork, I quite like the brickwork. Normally, I'm not a brick fan, but my clients who I was working for on this project loved brick and they wanted to keep it, but unfortunately we couldn't. So moving forward, here's another shot. This is the front of the house. So yeah, it was a shame to have to pull it down. In the time we had of doing the plans, getting the plans approved, and to the time we were demolishing it, I had in my mind to try and, repurpose as much of the house as we could find people to take it. So here's the demolition process. So in order to demolish a house, we have to remove all the drywall. That gets taken separately, and we took out as much as we possibly could as far as kitchens, fireplaces, lighting fixtures, faucets, equipment, machinery equipment. We repurposed all of that, and we were left with, mostly just the frame, the insulation, even the concrete slab. We repurposed that. We got a machine crusher in and used that for the road base for the slab. And here's a picture of the day after, or the day of the demolition. So it happens really quickly. And again, this is in BC, Canada, so beautiful backdrop. And yeah, she was there 1 minute and gone the next. And then this is the road in. So this is the road that would later become, somewhat of a nightmare, trying to keep up with all the water and rain we get throughout the year. And then here's the front. So we've erected our protection barrier fences for the protected trees at the front of the yard. We've put up our silt barriers for any stormwater that wants to push the dirt down the hill. And there she is. Slab's gone, everything's removed, ready to get to work on the grading. And this is a little turn circle we made for the trucks to come in, and that served a role for about 3 days, and then it was gone. And the excavation is down to grade here. It's being compacted, and then we have our road base coming in, so we use the crushed gravel underneath the slab. On this soil, we needed that as drainage. You can see here we've got the big equipment in, grading it out, and it doesn't look that deep, but we did bring up the level of the house around a lot. So it is I believe the basement was a 12-foot high ceiling, and yeah, the basement was 12 foot high, and then we framed down for our electrical and mechanical. And here you go. So you'll see throughout this is a lot of different elevations. It's quite technical, this basement pour. So we started off, this is the golf simulator room. So the very first rooms that were getting done in the home with the foundation for the golf simulator and the swimming pool and the elevator. So here you can see we've got the crushed gravel down for drainage. Then we're putting our insulation over the top. That's what it looks like after it's done. So we put our insulation over it's going to get filled in over the gravel. So the outer foundation area of this slab is lower. So it's a thicker edge beam. And then you can see here, this is the rebar. We did the stego wrap, so it's a heavy duty vapor barrier there that goes over the insulation. Then we put our rebar over the top. And you can see behind it we have a trench going in for our drainage, and that's going to be for the drain around the pool, which runs all the way to the front of the house where the stormwater's picked up. Yeah, and this is the pool. So we can see here we have a round pool, same process, gravel down, insulation, the stego wrap, moisture barrier, and then we're just starting to bend the rebar here for the footing right around the outside. There's another picture of the golf simulator room ready for concrete, and here's a shot of that trench I was talking about where we have the drainage. It's actually like a full drainage trench as well, right through, and that's solid pipe going in there. But the gravel in there will help take away any excess water as well. Here's the concrete. That's the very first pour of the project. And here you can see we have the plumbing going down. So this is the basement plumbing. So we put that in there. We're putting gravel underneath it, around it. You can see we've got like six inches of gravel underneath the slab. Here is the pool. So the pool rebar is done. This is the foundation for the pool. That'll be ready to pour now. And here you can see we're started on the grade beams, the footings for the house, and we're also getting the plumbing testing done. So that will be passed this day and then ready for the rebar to continue. And here's a shot at the plumbing. So now that it's passed, we put the insulation down, finish the moisture barrier off, and then the rebar continues. And here's just grading out the last bit of gravel as that insulation goes down. You can see in the background the rebar is already going down for the main slab. So it is a bit of a dance here. You can see we're moving really quickly, and we're moving not in one phase at a time, but multiple different things happening at the same time. So you can see the plumbing's already in over on this side as well. And right now we're setting up the formwork there. The forms are going in and ready for the rebar to go down. You can see the walls have already started around the golf simulator. Those walls have to go up until it's level with the main slab, with the main basement slab. And then we are good. So the rest of the rebar's gone down here. This is probably, I'd say, 50% of the overall footprint. In the middle there you can see the formwork. The wooden formwork in there is actually for the bowling alley. So the bowling alley needs a 30-inch or I think it's 30-inch or 32-inch drop for the equipment and the ball return underneath the bowling alley. So that's why we did that drop in there. That also needed to be, braced, and we're trying to pour that in one go. So that turned out to not quite work out as planned, and we had a few little bows in the wall which we had to cut and chip later and straighten it up. But you can see we're making good progress here. And then if we move to the next one, this is the walls going in. So in Canada, I mean, the climate is naturally, you get cold winters, so insulating as much as we could, where we could, was going to be a huge benefit down the road for heating costs and cooling costs. So we did the pool like this with the ICF, so it's very well insulated, the floor and the walls, and then we later poured the another concrete structure on the inside, so it's a very thick concrete throughout. This is the elevator shaft, so it's a 6-foot deep pit underneath the elevator, and again, more complexity pouring these different stages before we can even get the basement slab poured. So there's a good shot of it there showing the size of the pool. It's quite a large indoor pool, and you can see we've poured the slab in the background. We didn't do the whole slab, we've done a portion of the slab with the rebar through, ready to tie into the next part of the slab. And you can see here the walls are starting to go up for the basement. So we're doing these things simultaneously to speed it up. So here you can see we're working on the rest of the main floor slab, and now we're starting to tie it into the elevator, to the golf pit, to the golf room, the pool. All of this is starting to come together. And here you can see here we're pouring the main basement slab. We have our deputy inspecting the last little bits of the rebar that we needed to correct. The rebar guy's in there finishing off a couple of details as we pour the slab. So things are happening really, really fast. And here's a shot after the fact, after the pour. You can see our tracks going down now. The wall's already up, I believe 12 feet high on that half of the basement, and we're ready to begin on this half now. So moving through, you can see another shot there. So still not all of the basement finished yet, but it's getting close. And here's some more work on the walls. You'll notice these lines, you can't tie it in, you have to give these ICF walls room to expand and contract while you're assembling them. So you will see lines where it looks like it's just a random cut, but that's by design. That gets stitched up later before we pour. Okay, so here we are. I think we've skipped a little bit of time, but winter has come, and we were trying to beat the winter as much as possible, but I think this was an early one. And you can see here we've got the basement walls are all done, and we're starting on the main floor slab. So this is a great product. This is a really, really good product that I enjoyed using, is these insulated form decks. So they need a lot less formwork. They need no formwork, they just need some props, and they act as the formwork, and they reduce the weight of the concrete, and a lot less rebar as well. So you can see here they get pre-cut, they come into site, and sometimes we have to trim them, but we just place them in there, and then we can begin the work on the rebar. And here you see here, so they've got a beam that runs probably, I'd say I can't remember, every 2 feet, I believe it is. There's a beam, a concrete beam with one large rebar in it, and then it has this this single layer of rebar on the top, and that's all it needs. It's actually really, really well self-supporting, and those beams work amazingly well. And so this is another shot here of the main floor. So we're getting really close, the rebar's going in, and we're just finishing off the last few pieces. And soon we'll be ready to pour the main floor slab. Here's formwork where we don't have those insulated decks, where we needed a much thicker concrete beams running through. And you can see here we're getting ready for the pour. Because of the temperature, we're using special additives in the concrete. We're also covering them with these blankets after we pour to keep the heat in so it doesn't get too cold. And it's time, here we go. We're pouring the main floor slab. So you can see the thickness of the concrete is not overly thick for a fully suspended slab. But like I said, those beams that run through with the really heavy duty rebars inside them really reduce the amount of concrete we need. And there's a good shot of it right there. So we've got all our wall dowels in place as well. You'll see the dowel sticking up there. That's where all our walls are going to be built on top of. And we are making progress. And here's around the elevator and the slide. So this was a very technical part. You can see it's solid concrete. It's a lot more rebar. And there was a lot happening with the engineering of this particular part of the home. And again, larger beams, a lot larger rebar, and there's a good shot of it there. And you can see here we're working on the slab, and we are done. Look at that. That was a happy day. That was a really happy day. And there was a light drizzle. We managed to get it all smoothed out before the rain came, and the rain came at a nice time, like perfect time to be wetting down the slab after it was poured. And I remember this shot. It was just beautiful to see. It was a happy moment. And here you can actually see the two changes. So there's an elevation change for part of the slab. All right, and moving along, now comes the main floor walls. So you can see here mostly all the insulated concrete forms, and then we have a couple of big columns, big rectangular columns inside there that we didn't use the ICF for. And yeah, I think we have poured at this stage, ready to pour the main floor walls. And here we are, we're setting up the formwork for the upper floor. So we're starting on the upper floor now. And here is inside the ballroom. So we have, here you can see scaffolding going in, and this is one of the turret rooms. You can see we're putting the headers in with the rebar. The rebar's got to be curved to match the wall, and the ICFs were actually pretty easy with this curved wall. Normally curved walls aren't that easy to do when you're doing concrete, but the ICF made this easier. And another beautiful day. Looks like we had some snowfall the night before, and we're finishing off the walls for the main floor. Again, a shot of the scaffolding going in for the upper floor. And here we go, we've started work on the upper floor. So they're starting with the most difficult parts first, which is this big, huge beam that's going to carry a lot of the weight. There's a shot of the formwork there. It's different levels, different elevations. And here's that big beam. Like, there's a lot of rebar in there, and it's big rebar. You can see all those little beams inside the insulated concrete formwork tie into that. There's a nice shot showing the progress. You can see it's really starting to look like something now. It's coming out of the ground. And then you'll notice on the outside edge, we have to go along and put this bracing on the outside to hold so the slab doesn't spill out over the edge. So that takes a bit of effort to do that. And then again, you can see this turret. So we have 2 turrets, these circular rooms, one each side. Another big beam here. This is running through near where the elevator is. And this is showing the upper floor slab finished. So you can see the 2 elevation changes again. So these elevation changes happen from the basement. It was purposeful to have different levels all the way up on each floor. And again, that was such a rewarding day. And again, we had the mist, like we really lucked out getting the slab poured without too much rain, and then it just worked out nice. It wasn't too cold that day. And this is the site. I mean, this was the road I was telling you about earlier. There's just constant rain, and the soil is clay, so it was just constant with trucks of gravel in, and as soon as you'd put gravel down, if you put filter fabric under it first, it just didn't matter. It was just all sinking. It just was not good. And then here's a bit of a shot inside the walls. So you can see here, this is the upper wall, so the rebar no longer keeps sticking up to tie in. It's folded into this top mesh of this top beam of the rebar. And here we go, the roof trusses are coming in. So this was putting up the roof trusses. Because of the pitch of the roof and the complication of the roof and the fact that I wasn't really worried about any fires in this area, we went with a wood roof. And here you can see, so we have outside deck areas there with cantilevered balconies, and we're flying with the wood trusses. So the wood trusses go up. You can see there we're getting a plywood up there with a telehandler, and we are moving. And this side of while we're putting the trusses up, the other side of the upper walls hasn't been poured, so it's still getting made. So we've started on the trusses on one side of the roof, and we're still finishing off the walls on the other. And that's all part of that flow. And here you can see the size of the pumps we need. So these are massive pumps. And I mean, getting this thing in here, it got stuck a few times, then you have to get tow trucks to get it out. It wasn't easy, I'll tell you that. And you can see the amount of woodwork here. It's getting stripped for those cantilevered balconies as well. It's a nice little detail. And here's inside the ballroom. So these are 22 foot high, needed a lot of forming. That was quite a nerve-wracking pour doing them. And while that's happening, we are putting the floor heating down. So every floor in the entire house has heated floors, and so we don't damage the structural element of the house, we're pouring them all separately on top. So it's an 1.5 inch thick concrete topping over the top. And work is still going on upstairs, so we're still framing up the roof. There's some steel I-beams coming in, just where we couldn't pick up the load with regular LVLs. You can see here, this was I think a 40-foot span across this window, or this door. And yeah, this roof was quite a complex roof. It was a large roof, and yeah, you'll see later with a lot of the technical details with the roof. And while that's happening, we're still pouring the topping slabs for the radiant floor heating, but the steel work has begun, so we're doing a steel drop ceiling, and also steel framing on the walls. We can attach finish to the ICF, but we want to run all our electrical, and this was the way that made the most sense to get all of our electrical plumbing in. It was just easier, and I could get the walls perfectly straight with the steel, so that's the way I went. And while the roofing is going on, because it's such an enormous roof, we've started roofing sections of it. And you can see here I picked this. I wanted a slate roof, but I wanted it to be lightweight. We didn't want to have too much weight on the roof, and I wanted it to be relatively easy to install and last. I think this one came with a 50-year lifespan, so we went with this roof for the looks, and I think it was a great product and a great choice. That was the very first bit of the roof completed right there. And you can see here we're gearing up to pour the topping on the main floor slab, and that part there where there is no floor heating is the courtyard. So that's the central courtyard, which is open air. So this was quite painful for me. Was the process of pouring this was still having to have guys moving around on top after it was laid, and you know, it's never a good idea to have people moving around on top especially with ladders and tools. It only takes one person to damage, and then, you know, it's a pain trying to repair these underfloor heatings. And moving on, you can see we're really into the framing of the basement. So that's going on right now, is the framing inside the basement, and very shortly it'll be electrical and plumbing and mechanical moving through the basement. Here's a shot of these complicated turrets. You'll see more of them later. And this is really into the framing on the upper floor. We've got some load-bearing metal frames in there as well. And we are going well on the roof while all this is happening. You can see this turret on this side is looking pretty good. And then that brings us to the staircase. So, back to the staircase. So I like to do all the staircases in concrete. It's just a much better feel. So the beauty of these homes built like this is there's almost no noise. When people are walking up and down the staircase, they're inside a room. There's no hollowness, there's no sounds, there's no disruption. And I'm very noise sensitive, so I think if anyone can build their home out of concrete, it's game changer. And here you see the outside. So this is a shot. This is the first sort of shot you get of the actual scale of this home. I mean, you're looking at almost 17,000 square feet per level, and it's really starting to take shape. You can see from the outlines in the roof. You'll see later a better shot, but the roof's designed to have 3 different flat roof sections in it, which also house equipment, but it's also got a central courtyard as well. So all of those frames you see are all the same size. There's a better shot of it there. So you see the center one is the courtyard, which is open air. It goes all the way down, and you'll see the turrets on either side at the back. And then we have the accessory building on the left. And that's the shot from what I would say, what you would call the front of the house, which is the ocean side. And here's a staircase. We have 3 staircases in here, and 1 exterior one as well to the basement, plus an elevator. And work is continuing on the roof, looking great. And the fireplaces are going in right now. You can see mechanical, ducting, fireplaces. The framework's pretty much finished all at this point. We have a lot of electrical going in, a lot of low voltage. The mechanical room, these are water collection systems, so this is part of the water collection and disbursement system in the home. And now we're moving on to the upper floor heating. So this is the last section of the concrete toppings to go in, and this will mean that all of our underfloor heating is completed. You can see here we've laid out some ground floor stub work for where the walls are going to go, and this was the accessory building during the framing. And here we have electrical trenches, electrical lines going in. Here's a great shot of my excavator, which we almost lost in a sinkhole, which would later become the pond. This thing just was like a bog hole. It was awful, and we had to get the machine, actually we had to get a tow truck in to actually tow this machine out of there. We couldn't get it out. Now here you can see windows and doors. This is the point where we started to install the windows and doors, and you'll see in these pictures the windows and doors starting to go to where all the openings are, and this is working on the main entrance. This is the foyer, and this was a very complicated part of the build right here. Okay, this is the pool. So you can see here we're forming up the rebar on top of the concrete we've already poured over the foam. So this was getting ready to pour that, and you'll see this pool is super cool. You'll see that a bit later. Here's the theater room. So we have our tiered. We also did a curve. I created a curve on the front here so that it's going to be curved seating. And here you can see the front entrance. So we're doing this concrete beams and posts system, and which is later going to be clad in limestone with a glass roof. This was a really cool detail that took a lot of effort to get right. And you can see where our windows and doors are all going in, ready for glass, which is going to be coming. These all come from Germany too, by the way. Beautiful fir windows. Here's a groin vault ceiling that we've framed in. This was a cool one. This is the master shower. So it's an actual shower. We cantilevered it So the slab comes out, it's cantilevered into the slab, and it has that keystone support right there. The roof is also cantilevered out. And here you can see the cantilevered balconies. And this is where we started the brickwork. So I wanted to do all limestone, complete limestone facade. The client loves brick. So we had a little compromise and we did a little limestone trim with brickwork. And I think it looks pretty good. This is the limestone detail I was talking about with the brickwork. It's just a good shot of the detail. So it's mechanically fastened back to the wall. So we use these stainless steel anchors, and that's how we do the all of the limestone you'll see throughout the house. And there's the top, so full limestone window casings, and then the keystone in the top. Here's the upper floor. It's almost ready for electrical, plumbing and mechanical. And here's another shot. And here's the electrical, plumbing, mechanical all going in right now. You can see the basement, it's finished and we're onto the drywall. You can see here a lot of work into the metal framing. It's all perfectly straight. These curves aren't easy to do. And then we're getting ready for the trim, the drywall and the trim. And now we're onto the main floor, same process as the basement. So we're framing out the main floor. And this was one of the most tricky areas right here, is trying to work out with these concrete beams that run through, how to get our plumbing and electrical and everything else we needed to get through them with the ceiling heights I wanted to maintain. And here's a shot of the basement pool, the grotto pool. So you can see that part right there is the jacuzzi. So the jacuzzi is done and now they're working on the rest of it. That's our wood floor. So wood floor's in and this is all laid in place. It gets glued down and then sanded and finished on site. You can see here the drywall, the trim, first coat of primer. It's all going on right now on the main floor. Cabinets have arrived, so cabinets are starting to get installed as the floor goes down. More details on groin vault ceilings. And then this is the ballroom. There's a lot of technical details with the framing there. And then here is the grotto pool. So this took a lot of time to create and imagine how I wanted this to look, with the jacuzzi, with the pool. I wanted it to look like a cave. I wanted it to have LED lighting and crystals coming out of it. It was a real fantasy sort of a project. It was a very whimsical sort of creation. We had 800 amp service, and here you can see we've got disconnects and sub panels going on here. This is a shot of the ballroom. You can see a bit of the details. Here's a nice shot of the turret. You see the turret detail there we did. And this is inside the turret. So this is the ceiling. It's quite a complex design. And again, there's so many rooms here where it was just an incredible amount of detail and effort went into getting it just right. Landscape work and hardscaping had begun at this point, and now we're starting to see some rooms actually getting into towards the finishing stages. Here's the floor, the marble floor. I drew this pattern up. It's a one of one. You won't see this anywhere else. Let me know in the comments if you think for good reason, but it is unique. And we did this with a water jet, so it's all water jet cut. And here's the main floor. That's after sanded before finish. And then you'll see one of the dining rooms here. And then that's more of the laser cut floor. So it's a pretty interesting pattern. And then you'll see that we had to lay all this and polish it in place. So we actually used a floor polisher and went down through the grades and got it perfectly flat. Here's a bar. This is some backlit onyx we did in the project. Here's a shot of the bar with the finished onyx. See the caulking there, caulking tubes. So this part of the home is very close to finished. We're just going through with final detailing now. This is the theater room. It looks like it's ready for carpet. And we also have a starry sky ceiling, fiber optic ceiling going in here. This is the onyx wall. So we did a backlit onyx wall in the main foyer. And here we're showing the finish work. We're doing drywall and then we're doing MDF. I like to do MDF because it was not going to expand and contract, and it created a really nice smooth finish. And then we put our trim around it. Here's a shot of the turret. So we have the brickwork going in now. The windows and doors are already in. So here you see the outside, the brickwork, the limestone, the roof, it's all coming together. It's getting closer and closer. You can see the paving is already in as well, so this is much further towards the end. Here's the Grotto cave pool. So you'll see they did a fantastic job with the concrete on this. I wanted the stalactites and stalagmites and all sorts of cool things in here. You'll see little crystals that are all lit up. We had to run LED lighting in behind them, order these special crystals and then place them in there. I mean, this was a labor of love right here. It's not the best image, but you can see in the middle, we're doing another fiber optic starry sky in the middle to make it look like an opening in the cave. You'll see that later. This room is a karaoke room. So I think you'll see that later in the picture, but really cool room. I love doing this one. Okay, so we talked about the detail for the rebar and the concrete, a very technical engineering challenge for the slide and elevator. And now you can see the slide and elevator going in. We had to make a special glass bridge which required custom engineered brackets and also a lot of engineering on the glass around the elevator and the slide and getting it to connect to these floating bridges in between levels. And another fun fact about this slide is that we had to draw it up in CAD. It had to be absolutely precise to the millimeter. And we finished it in this metallic gold finish. And in fact, we did the elevator in the exact same finish and all the steel work around it. A big challenge with this slide was to mount it in a way that it was completely stable, it wouldn't move, and also have the mounts aesthetic to the eye so it looked like it was barely held on with anything. And here we go up to the main floor. So this is the turret that you've seen throughout the build with the really detailed ceiling, and this carpet is equally as detailed. So this, I drew up the carpet, had it all hand stitched, handmade, and it's a stunning, stunning shade of green. I absolutely loved it. It took me weeks and weeks to draw up the design and pick out the colors. And this is the piano room, so amazing. And this is the chandelier for the piano room. You can see the ceiling turned out brilliantly. Really happy with the ceiling, and this light that's just getting assembled took a couple of weeks to do for the chandelier, and it turned out amazing too. Here's the kitchen. Part of the kitchen. So this kitchen is massive. It has 3 islands, and in keeping with the theme, the owner wanted green, and we did green on the bottom cabinetry. We've got a green stone, so it's a marble with green veins in it, and the upper cabinetry is an antique whitish color with again the same green antiquing on it. And then we did these like almost ship-like lights, and then we got like a portal there where the sink is, which is really cool. It looks over the slide. You can sort of make it out there, and the back is the slide. And then here's a shot. You can see the marble floors are polished up now. The wood's finished, the doors are in. I mean, it's pretty much finished, and that's looking out into the central courtyard. And here you can see the fish tanks being installed. So this is another crazy cool part. We did a fish tank with two little tanks off each end, which sort of go into the wine rack. So these are wine racks, and you can see we've put a mirror under the fish tank to make it look like it's floating under the main central fish tank. Yeah, and then the idea was to have Nemo in this aquarium, and he'd just travel out through these little glass tubes into the little floating aquariums, or the little floating tanks inside the wine racks. So you'll see that later too, which is cool. Here's the ballroom. We did this massive skylight in the middle, and then with 4 chandeliers. Here's the ceiling going in. It's a canvas ceiling with the fiber optics. And we can also print digital images onto that if you want like a visual image. Here's a shot of and here we're back to the Grotto pool. You can see the outside of the pool's in, the glass is going in. So this encloses it and keeps it completely enclosed. This is looking back out over the front entry. So this is that feature I was talking about earlier with the concrete beams and columns. And this is what it looked like finished. So you can see we did a curved glass roof, standoffs with a gold metal frame. We did a steel frame over it, and then this is the limestone clad around it. It's really spectacular. You can see from the finished product now, if you want to stick around and watch what the house actually looks like completed, and knowing what work went into it and all the details you can see through the construction component of it, I think you'll appreciate it even more. So stick around and watch that, and we'll get into it right now. From the moment we are born, we are being programmed by our parents, those around us, our schools, and the media on how to think, what to believe, and ultimately, who to become. This is also very true in architecture. We are told by society what a dream home is and what it represents. We are told what style is in fashion and how to make our home more stylish and in trend. This is all programming. What I really encourage is to be yourself and create what feels good to you. It doesn't matter what other people think. That's their problem if they are triggered by you being free enough to express yourself. Now, as a very creative person and a self-taught designer and architect, I have found myself being able to enjoy a myriad of architectural styles. What I truly love about architecture and design is the artistic expression. There really is no right or wrong. And architecture and design in a home should be inspiring and beautiful for the ones it serves. Can you imagine a world where everyone had the same home, done exactly the same way? That's the true beauty in creation, and I think it's really important for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of programming to hear this. So the reason I am sharing this is because it is an integral part of this home and my design philosophy, and hopefully you can see the uniqueness and playfulness of this home. Thank you for sharing with me what was an incredible life experience, and one full of a myriad of emotions, life lessons, and a project that really tested me emotionally, physically, and spiritually.